Hey, what's up? This is Doggie Diamonds, and this show is sponsored by The Anatomy of a Corporate Lynching by Charles Ford. You can get the audiobook at www.fourthfordbooks.com. Get the audiobook. You want to hear this, you want to listen to this. This is very, very essential. Some of y'all might even be going through this. And also, let's also do this. You could go to the website. You see that? You could go to the website. That is the website. You could go there, listen to it, download it right here. It's available for purchase right here. If you want to do the Amazon Kindle thing, fine, but this is the actual website right here, fourthfordbooks.com. Go there. Let's get into this show. What's up, everybody? I go by the name of Doggie Diamonds. This is Doggie Diamonds No Filter, the next wave edition, to where we bring on actors, Oh, I'm not allowed to say actresses. I gotta say actors because they're all actors now. But we bring on actors, we bring on singers, we bring on rappers, we bring on authors, we bring on different people. The next wave is new artists coming into this industry. And today, I said who the show is sponsored by. I got the author on the screen. Introduce yourself to the people.
Charles Ford, author of The Anatomy of a Corporate Lynching.
The Anatomy of a Corporate Lynching. Corporate lynching. So, all right, when we say corporate, some people automatically think you in some high-rise building, you in Midtown somewhere. What is corporate?
Well, corporate is the industrial leg of any building or occupation that you're working in, if it's not something that you're doing independently. It's the corporate status.
Got you. And in your particular
in this case, in my particular case, it's the corporation Con Edison, the utility company in New York.
So you worked for Con Ed for how long?
I was hired in 1990.
And I guess wrongfully terminated in what year?
2003. Yeah.
Got you. So Con Edison, for the people who don't know, you have different places. Con Edison in New York City is the place that's who got your lights on. So everybody who has lights in their home and their building office pays Con Edison. So, all right, a corporate lynching. So you're working for Con Ed. When did you? What was your title at Con Edison?
Well, at the time, I was a CFR. They call that a customer field representative. And what I was doing under that title, I would go out and check people's gas meters and electric meters and take readings from which the company would determine how much the customer's bill was going to be every month.
Got you. So you were doing this, and obviously something. Where did obviously something went wrong. What went wrong? What did you sense? Like, hold on, something is going on. Because when you say corporate, obviously it's not something that's happening with you and the customer. It's something that's happening internally. What started going wrong?
Well, at a certain point, I decided I wanted to get out of that department because it was like a dead end job.
Mm-hmm.
It was the entry level position that where you could go and become like a bill collector and things like that. But that's not what I wanted to do. I wanted to get into the meat and potatoes of the company where they were actually selling the electricity. I didn't want to be reading meters all the time, so I applied to go to a different department. And during that year that I applied to leave, first off, I'm a songwriter as well. Outside of the corporate structure, I'm an artist and I'm always writing, and I've been doing that since I was a teenager. And I started toying around with an idea to submit to the company that they could use for their slogan, because they used to have a slogan that went, the company you know, the people you trust.
Mm-hmm.
And that was whack to me. That was just like, that was garbage, man. I was saying, you know what? Let me just see if I could give them something, if I could come up with something that would top that.
Mm-hmm.
And I came up with an idea, and I didn't know where to take it.
Mm-hmm.
So I spoke to some people on a safety committee that I was a part of to try to find out where I should take the idea. I didn't tell them what the idea was.
Mm-hmm.
I just told them I had an idea for a slogan, and could they tell me where to take it? So they looked into it, and the following month when we convened for our safety meeting, they told me where to go. I submitted the idea. I called the person up that they told me to take it to. Told them what I was doing and what I'd done, and asked them if they indeed were the person to submit the idea to. And they said, yeah, come on down and bring it. So I took it down to them, gave them the idea, and then I waited for them to respond and let me know what they thought about it. And a couple of months afterwards, I transferred out of that department as a CFR, and I went to the department that I was telling you about, where it's the meat and potatoes of the company, where they selling electricity. I didn't hear anything from the person I submitted the idea to for like, a month went by, 6 months went by, nothing. So I just forgot about it. And when I was over in the new department, a company-wide email was sent out to everybody and letting them know that they were about to change their corporate brand and their slogan. And the slogan was identical to the one that I had submitted. And that was the point where everything started going wrong, because I couldn't just sit back and let that ride. I had to address it.
So once you realized that they bit your slogan, what was your first course of action?
The first course of action was to reach out to that person that I submitted the idea to and ask them, what happened? Why is this happening? And at the same time, I wrote a letter to the CEO of the company to put him on notice about what happened. And I wanted to know what he was going to do about it.
How was you able to prove that you gave them this idea? Because people say coincidence, great, this thing they like to say, coincidence, great minds think alike. How was you able to prove this was mine and you took it?
Well, as a songwriter, you always know, and many of the people out there who are creative, particularly as songwriters, you always know the importance of protecting your intellectual properties. And for a long time, as a teenager growing into adulthood, although I knew the importance of copywriting my material, as much as I was creating, I didn't have the money to copyright each individual project that I wrote. So what I would do in the interim, until I got like about 10 songs to put on one copyright form, I would do what's called a poor man's copyright, where you would take the idea that you wrote, you write it out, and then you put it in an envelope and mail it to yourself. And when that self-addressed and stamped envelope comes back to you, you don't open it up, because the date that the post office put on the envelope is the date that proves the date of your creation of what's in the envelope.
Is this certified mail? This is certified mail, if I'm not mistaken, right? Or just
yes, you can do that. You can
that
do
definitely
it that
secure
way too.
you more. Yeah, that's secure. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was the same with the idea that I came up with for the company. Before I submitted it, I put it in an envelope and I mailed it to myself. And only after that did I go to them and submit it. Yeah.
So all right. Basically, they bit you. They stole from you. What became of? What was their response to you?
Well, the person that I submitted it to said that they didn't know anything about what I was talking about. And I learned that the CEO, his main concern at that point was, are we going to be hit with a lawsuit? That's all he wanted to know. And he sent an order out to do an investigation to find out, or to investigate my claims that I written in the letter to the CEO. Yeah.
So this individual, what was stopping you? I don't mean to ask you like this, but what was stopping you from punching them in their face? Because I know you probably wanted to punch them in their head. What was stopping you? Did you see the bigger picture? Like, hold on, I can really get something from this. Because did they outright change it, or they was thinking of changing it? The slogan.
No, they okay. For instance, one of the ideas that I submitted to them, I said, I gave them different sentences in terms of how to use the slogan. And one of them was, it said, if your cable gets turned off, don't worry, just think. Con syllables, where, don't worry, Con Ed is on. And in the letter that they sent out to everybody in the company, it said, don't worry, just think. Con Edison is on it. So they added the word it at the end.
And Edison.
Right. And in answer to your question about how come I didn't punch them in their faces, because I wanted to deal with it the corporate way, because it's very easy to deal with it the street way. From where I come from, man, that's the first thing you want to do. And that is the first thing I thought about, because I was angry. I was like, because I didn't know, like, yo, what's going on here? But I realized that if I'm gonna go to court, the last thing I want to do is clothesline this person and knock them out, because then that's gonna become the focal point of this whole charade. And I didn't want to give them anything like that. I wanted to just keep it on what was going on, which was the theft of my intellectual property.
Okay, so they launched an investigation. What was their finding of their investigation?
That although the ideas are very similar, the auditor didn't believe that there was an intentional case of theft. And on the low, he told me, well, I want you to know that I personally understand what you're saying, and I personally agree with you. But I don't think that there's anything that was necessarily done wrong in this case. And then he gave me the option of going out and getting a lawyer.
So the auditor is internal in the company that speaks to you and speaks to the party involved. So it's like an internal investigation, and they're going to settle it. It's like a mediation between in the company, right? And they says, I don't think they did anything wrong. We'll leave it here. But if you want to go further, you can.
Correct. I didn't expect anything less coming from him.
In the book, all of this is stated in the book. This is where you give them your background and you let them know this is what happened. This is what the corporate lynching is. Because when people say corporate lynching, lynching is a big word. How do you feel like, besides them taking your works, what else did they do to you? Because now you're thinking about suing the company you work for. So I know it's a lot of revenge. I know it's a lot. What is some of the things that started happening to you on the job?
Well, they were pretty much waiting to see what I was going to do. Like they'll tell you, well, we don't see anything that was done inappropriate. And then they leave it at that. And when you ask them to give you further information about their findings, they'll say stuff like, okay, well, we're going to check our records. I know I have further information to give you when I get back to my office. And then you get a little email 3 days later saying that I'm not allowed to give you that further information that you were seeking. And then they wait to see what you're going to do. And first thing I did is I went to the media. And the newspaper wrote up an article about what was going on, and they put a picture of the new corporate brand and everything and what they were doing. And so it was all over the all over public transportation. It was on TV, on the radio, and all this kind of stuff. And it was exposed. I let them know that it just wasn't going to end with the little email that was going back and forth between us. That little correspondence wasn't going to be the end all. And after that, that's when the retaliation started, the subtle retaliation.
So what was the first thing that you was like, oh, I see what y'all trying to do. I see how y'all playing.
Where they started making stuff up and saying that I did certain things that I didn't do.
They're gonna read it in the book and they can hear it in the book. But for example, give us one thing that they was accusing you of.
Okay, I would request permission to go to get training for the new position and department that I was in. And they would tell me, okay, yeah, you can go for that training. And then I would go for the training. And when I get to the instructor would say, oh, your area called up and said that you didn't get permission to come down here to get training.
So you went AWOL.
Yeah. And then they started denying me training at the location where I was working.
So, whatever came. So, did you decide to sue? Did you take the lawsuit further as far as with them stealing your works?
Yes.
So
yes, indeed.
So now they really we're gonna retaliate and get you up out of here. So how did you expect to still work there and you're suing them? What did you expect from it?
I expected them to possibly retaliate.
Okay.
But my fear of retaliation was less than my fear of going on and letting them get away with that. The anger I had about what they had done was so much stronger, and I was moved more by that because I wouldn't have been happy just sitting there and continuing to work under the guise of, just be happy that you're employed, knowing what they did, seeing my idea all over the city, all on the computer monitors. You go into work and then they got your idea, on Zoom coming in at you like on it. These are the little things that they were doing. And I just couldn't rock with that. I couldn't let that go, man. So I wasn't too much concerned about how they would retaliate, although I knew they would.
So, okay, when you have to file a lawsuit, explain to the people when you're suing a corporation, how difficult is it? Because you're suing, besides is it Keyspan and certain things in New York City, this is one of the biggest companies. How difficult is it, and how fearful was you to say, I'm about to take on a corporate giant? How fearful was it, and how difficult is it financially?
Well, the financial part, I just paid the attorney, the retainer, that they wanted. I mean, it was a little difficult, only in the sense of trying to find the right attorney in the beginning, because I'd first gone to this attorney, this white attorney, and I showed him what was going on. I showed him the letter that I wrote to the CEO and to the person I submitted the idea to. And I never forget, when he read the letter, he was like, oh, I see. this is a great letter. I see you played the race card
Hmm.
right there.
Yeah, you
I
got it.
knew I had to get rid of him. I couldn't rock with him. So at the time, Johnny Cochran had opened up an office in Manhattan,
Mm-hmm.
and I went down to his office to get him on board.
Mm-hmm.
And when he saw the case, he was like, "Yeah, okay, I'm gonna take this on." And his assistant, would always keep me abreast of what was going on and let me know, yeah, it's gonna happen. He's gonna deal with it, but he has to finish this case that he's on right now. At the time, he was on Puffy's case. He had this case regarding the shooting at Club New York,
Yes. Mm-hmm.
and he was dealing with that.
Mm-hmm.
And it just seemed like Mr. Cochran was never going to get around to it because that case just kept going on and on. And I wanted to get into it. I wanted to make it happen. So I ultimately found another attorney, intellectual property attorney,
Mm-hmm.
and I paid him his retainer, and then we just got into it.
So, I guess they could hear it in the book, but do you mind disclosing the end result of the case?
Well, it wound up being three cases,
Mm.
because I sued them twice. And the third time I had to sue the company and the union because I saw that the union was in cahoots with the company. And all along, I'm thinking that the union
Work
had
for
my back.
because you pay union dues and you do all this stuff. So okay, but
Absolutely.
okay, before we get into how many lawsuits, what happened with them stealing your works? Was that ever resolved?
Okay. Uh, it was resolved in their favor
Mm.
because after when they saw me pull out the proof that I came up with the idea, all of a sudden they pulled out some kind of document stating that, oh, well, somebody else had this idea before yours.
Mm.
And one of the criteria in order to maintain or have a case that goes through as far as it's supposed to is that your idea has to be what's called novel or original.
Mm.
So what they did is they just went and they came up with some document that somebody allegedly submitted to them like a year or so before I submitted my idea to them,
Mm.
which which looked like my idea as far as how the letters were configured.
Mm.
Like where I broke Edison into 3 syllables and I made a slogan out of it. They showed they came up with a picture where somebody had written Con Edison and Edison was like in different colors.
Mm.
It
So,
wasn't a slogan, but they just showed Edison in different colors, like Ed is on.
mm. So okay.
And somehow they,
So you so you
yeah,
so you have this thing going on. The intellectual property lawyer takes it. So you go back to work. Like you got them in court, but you go back to doing your job.
right.
So obviously something started taking place at work, and this is where the corporate lynching parts take place. What are the things that they started doing to you? They denied you training, claim you went AWOL. You go into training and they say, hey, you were never authorized to come here, so that means you left the job site. Uh, what are some of the other things that took place? Because I've heard of things like this happening where they start playing games with you and then saying go here and then blaming you for going there, but then say nobody told you to go there, but this person said that told you to go there say I never told you to go there, and it looks like you walked off the job sometimes. What are some of the things they started doing? Move to your right shoulder a little bit more so you're in the screen because we can see the book, but I just want to make sure you're in the screen a little bit. There you go. What are some of the things they
Okay.
started doing to you?
Well, what they began what's called a process of stacking
Mm.
charges on me. Like they would call me in and say things like, okay, well, we're accusing you of doing this. And I'm like, I didn't do that.
Mm.
And then said, well, yes, you did. And we're going to suspend you for 5 days.
Ooh.
But we reduce the suspension to 2 days only if you don't grieve it with the union. And then the shop steward and the business agent of the union would say, well, you should go along with that, Charles. You should just, go along with it. You're still going to get your paycheck, and, just don't worry about it. I didn't agree to it, but I was being misled.
Mm.
And what the way it works is they continue to stack these bogus charges against you until they got like a folder, really thick folder full of charges that when they ultimately come down and try to terminate you, when you go to arbitration to grieve the termination, the arbitrator now looks at the reason you were terminated, and then all of these stacked up charges that were being built up over the long haul against you to make you look like a bad employee. And you might not even have been a bad employee, but it appears that you are to an arbitrator who's looking at it, trying to make a decision between the union and the company on your behalf.
So basically they build a rap sheet against you.
Yes.
So okay, so
Yes.
they say they said you did inadequate work. So we gotta suspend you, the customer, this, that, and the third. You did inadequate work. We could suspend you for 5, but we'll give you 2. You, of course, call your union and say this is what they want to do. But they're telling you don't file a grievance with the union. But the union is saying, just take it. So that's what you're basically saying. So how many times?
And I did that. I went along with that the first time because, I didn't know any better. But then after that, it was like I grieved everything. Everything. And they kept trying to stack stuff, and it wasn't holding up. Because, they would throw a charge at you and just see if it stuck. And it was waiting for me to do something where they could be like, yeah, we got him. And when it wasn't happening quick enough, then they just went all out and they just came up with some bogus reason to get rid of me. So, and they did just that.
So it went from stacking charges, minor charges, or were they accusing you of something major that warrants termination? Was it a bunch of stacking? Because stacking means, to me, I would take it as BS, 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 BS. But 50 BSs equals you just a fuck up. You know what I'm saying? So that's what they were doing?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, they were trying to create the impression that I was just such a problem employee.
All the while.
And yeah, it was all BS. All BS.
But all the while, litigation is going on.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, because let's keep that in on the audience mind. All the while, you're in litigation. So did anybody ever come to you and say, "Hey man, drop this lawsuit and we got you. We'll look out for you"? Did they ever try to settle with you in some type of way?
No.
Okay.
No. Once they came up with this little document that they say was that they discovered during my misappropriation lawsuit against them, and it was just like they fell back from it. And then they went on with trying to put these charges on me, trying to get me out.
So they're working on getting you out. At some point, you say, hold on. This is a lot of retaliation going on. When did you decide to file a suit against them again, as well as the union?
I filed a lawsuit against them afterwards, again, for wrongful termination against the company, for wrongful termination.
And what was the what was the grounds?
That was going on during the arbitration hearings that were being held by the union, between the union and the company for the termination. So you had the arbitration going on between the union and the company for the termination, as well as the lawsuit that was going on outside, externally, against the company for wrongful termination.
Eventually they got rid of you, right? You eventually got terminated. What What was the findings in that, or should they read the book to see what happened? Because obviously you don't work there no more, but should they just listen to the book to hear what happens? You know what I'm saying? Because I'm curious to know, but I don't think we should give them everything. But the corporate, because if you had to define in your case corporate lynching, explain that, because we know theft of your intellectual property. Then you go to, say, hey, what happened? Then they started retaliating, doing stuff. So if you had to, because this is not something uncommon, maybe not a slogan, you know what I'm saying, but maybe it could be any idea. We have people who work in marketing. We have people who work in different places for major corporations. They might have came with an idea and say, that's a nice idea, but you didn't make it up. You know what I'm saying? What is corporate lynching? If you had to define, and somebody say, the anatomy of a corporate lynching, what does that mean? How would you define that for them?
Well, the title Anatomy of a Corporate Lynching, the reason I came up with that title is because the anatomy consists of different parts to make up the whole body.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to show the different parts that make up the lynching that they had put into motion when they got upset about me filing a lawsuit against them and basically standing up for myself. And with regards to the question about, where did it go? Well, during the arbitration, the arbitrator saw through all of the nonsense and he saw that the company was wrong. And then the company started to offer me money to just walk, because the arbitrator was telling me that, they don't want you back. So it was all these kind of deals that the company was trying to make, because they knew they didn't have a leg to stand on. So they was trying to offer me money to walk. Like, we give you 25,000. All right, we give you 35,000. Okay, 45,000, 60. And it was just like they kept trying that. And I just wasn't trying to hear it. I didn't want to hear any of it.
How far did it go up?
Yeah.
How far did it go up? The offers.
60 grand.
With what? With just you out of here with 60 grand, or is it some type of severance with it? So, okay.
No, it was.
So how are you not wrong if you offering money though? That's what I don't get. Like, cause like you're trying to settle. Settlements sometimes mean that it's some type of wrongdoing on your behalf, because if is it cheaper to just get rid of you? Is that how you think they looked at it? From your point of view, was it cheaper to just say give him 60 grand and get him up out of here and he'll leave us alone? What did you think? Was that 60 grand and drop the lawsuits, or 60 grand and you don't work here no more?
No, that was 60 grand without me testifying at my arbitration. They was just saying, look, just walk. You just walk, and we're willing to give you 60. And after I kept denying it and refusing their offer, then it was like, oh well, this is the most that we'll offer. And if he doesn't accept this, talking to the arbitrator, if he doesn't accept this, then we're gonna take the offer off the table. And a monetary offer is not a settlement if it's built on lies. If you terminated me for something that I did wrong, and I know I did something wrong, and you make an offer, that's what I would call a settlement, where it's like, all right, we mutually agree that there was some kind of infraction. But this thing was built on lies. It was no way I was gonna accept that at all. I don't care if they offered me $250,000. And I told them just that, because I know I didn't do anything. I know what they were doing. They were trying to stack these charges on me so that they could relieve me because they didn't like me. That's all it was about. And I knew it.
Now, what I didn't ask you initially when you gave the idea for the slogan, was it a black man you gave it to?
No, it was a white woman.
And she just took your idea and went to somebody else and was like, hey, I got a great idea. So in that situation, did you know who eventually got compensated for your original idea, or they just who got credited for it?
They credited an advertising company for having come up with the idea. And they said that the advertising company, the assistant who worked at the advertising company, claimed that the owner came up with the idea based off of a Marvin Gaye song.
Wow. So,
yeah. And when I asked them if they can give me the assistant's name, when the auditor came around and was doing his investigation, and I asked him if he could give me the person's name,
crickets.
They refused to do it. They didn't want to give me that information.
Crickets. How long did this litigation go on for?
Wow. You for the first suit.
The
right?
first suit total. Let's say just dealing with this con ed BS from the first suit. How long? How much of your life did this take?
About 8 years.
Damn. Okay, so that kind of changes the thing a little bit. So it took 8 years. So they obviously terminated you. How was you able to survive? Like, how did you? You know, you have a corporate job. What's Con Edison, city or state? City, right?
Con Edison is a private okay. company.
So you have a good job. I mean, you got a good 401k. You got dental. You got health insurance. How were you able to maintain during this time you're terminated? Were you terminated?
Well, during the termination, you know, I was able to sustain myself, and that's why it's always good to have another stream of income and be able to, you know, have money coming from different avenues. You know, so I was able to sustain myself during that whole thing, just like I was able to pay the attorneys for my case, my cases, plural. You know, because a lot of times you get into a lawsuit and they try to stretch it out as long as they can in hopes that eventually you'll run out of
retainer money,
dividends.
Retain
to keep your thing going.
Because they got to sometimes. Because that's something that I wanted to ask you, and I think it's important to educate the audience. When you're suing somebody, there's a way that they could stall you out to where you can't pay your lawyer anymore to go refile. Like, how does that work? Because I always heard there's a way to them to stretch it out to where it gets adjourned, and they keep filing motions to where it stretches out to where you don't go in court, and then your lawyer says to you, "Hey, I still want to go after them, but I'm gonna need a couple of more dollars to refile." How does that work? Because I'm not 100% sure.
Well, in my case, I do remember first of all, you want to make sure, you just want to hope that the judge is not in the loop and down with the people who you're suing.
Damn, so it goes, because the rabbit hole goes deep.
It goes really deep, man. Damn. And you want to take it even further. You want to make sure that the attorney that you have, because, all right, imagine this, Doggie. I'm not saying that this is what happened in my case, but it's one of the things that you think about in retrospect. When it comes to fighting the big corporations that you were just talking about a minute ago, the big companies, if your attorney is not like a Johnny Cochran, who, man, I just wish could have rocked my case. You know, I wish, you know, he could have worked my case. But if your attorney is not of such a big stature like that, there's always the possibility that that big corporation that you're suing will offer your attorney some money on the low.
Damn.
To throw your case. All right. So that's one of the things that you got to kind of worry about when you're going up against anybody.
Yeah, because
with a
yeah.
lawsuit. And in my case, I remember with the misappropriation case for the theft of my intellectual property. When Con Edison came up with this email that showed a picture of the word Con Edison configured similar to the way that I configured it in my slogan submission, my attorney said to me, I could really go further with this case. He said, if you had more money, I could really go somewhere with this. And I didn't like the way that sounded. So although I could have pursued it further, it was just something about the way that sounded to me.
Give me some money.
Because
I'm
I'm
gonna eat
thinking
this case.
he
But
did make it
yeah.
seem like yeah, there is something further we could do. Like, because it's like legally, like there was something that we could do legally despite what they were doing at that 11th hour of the game. But I just didn't go further with him. I didn't have confidence in him because he wasn't Johnny Cochran.
So let me ask you something. I guess they could read or listen to the audio, but what do you prefer, them reading it or listening to it? What is your preference?
Well, the reason I did the audiobook is because the first printing of the book did so well. And I know that there are a lot of people who they don't either have the time to sit down and read with one sitting, but they can get much more of the book while they're on the go. So, after a couple years of seeing how well the book did, I came up with I released the second printing, the updated edition, which is the image that you see back here with the seal on it. And it tells you everything that happened following the release of the book at work. How people responded to it and just everything that happened after the book was released.
You were still working there when you released the book?
Yes, because the arbitrator saw through that bogus termination and reinstated me.
But eventually, they end up getting rid of you somehow.
Well, they did get rid of me. They did get rid of me, but the arbitrator saw through it, and I was terminated. I was terminated for a period of time. But the arbitrator reinstated me because the arbitrator saw that the charges were bogus.
Okay. So, but you wrote a book while you on the job, and and when you write that, do you have to blur the names out, or are you able to say John Silverman on the 4th? Are you allowed to do that, or you have to? What do you got to do here?
Nah, I kept it 100. I kept it actual. Every name that was affiliated with my case, that's the name that made it to the book, because everyone has to be
held
accountable for their actions, including me.
So you went to break room. So you go to break room, and people sitting in the break room like this is what you say was going on. Like people sitting in the break room reading the book.
Nah.
Okay, I'm tripping. I'm like, okay.
But I will say this. There have been people that have come up to me, like several people have come up to me, people that I don't know in the company, who have told me that they read the book. So although I don't see them sitting there reading it in front of me, people were reading it. I learned. Despite me being barred from letting my fellow coworkers in the company know that the book was available for them, just laying out the whole story of what happened.
How do they do that? Like, you're not allowed. Well, how do they know if you come in there and say, "Hey, buy my book"? But you're not allowed to come. How do they determine? So you can't go to the bar after work and say, "Did you read my book?" That's what they're saying you can't do.
No. See, all right. When I first released the book, it was in January of 2019. And I had a few pre-orders at work. And when I bought the first few books in and I sold them out, then it was like I prepared a letter to send to the CEO and all of the Con Edison rank and file employees to let them know that the book was available.
Mm-hmm.
And I put and I lay everything out in the book further, you know, because I know we wouldn't have time to pretty much cover everything. But anyway, I
Mm-hmm.
prepared a letter to send to all of my coworkers in the company, just to let them know that the book was available.
Mm-hmm.
And in order to do that, you have to include a DL distribution list
Mm-hmm.
of everybody in the company. But when I typed up the email and I put all of the people that I was sending it to in the to box and the CC box, including the distribution list, I was met with a message that I'm not available. I don't have the administration or administrator privileges to use that distribution list. I
Mm-hmm.
had to get approval to use that. So, you know, I talk about in the book how I went and I spoke to the the manager about getting access to it, and then the vice president about getting access to it, and then how they came at me, how they came back at me, and they told me specifically that you cannot promote this book on our internet portal.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so it was just like I couldn't do it.
So how were you
But
able to talk about what's going on during litigation? That's what I'm confused. I thought before cases are settled, you have to be quiet until the case is settled. So was it settled when you wrote the book, or what was going on?
oh yeah, the story is a recollection. It's like my account of what went on, about what happened,
In
because
that instance, well, so what about when you started suing for when you sued them again for like retaliation and you had to sue the union? That's how you revised the book again, is what you're saying?
no, while the lawsuit was on, I didn't say anything to anybody. I didn't say anything. I just went to work every day and, you know, just did work as I
And that
usually
night you
would
was
with my
home like
coworkers and my supervisors.
and at home you was on the computer writing.
Well, yeah. I did all of that externally, and
Gotcha.
I actually wrote the book. I started like when the case had ended back in when everything had ended. I mean, from like the beginning up to like the last part of the case between the company and then the one with the company and the union. The attorney that I had at that point said that, matter of fact, two attorneys told me that I should write a book about it.
Mm,
But I didn't want to write no damn book.
mm,
You know, my whole thing is I want to see these people burn
mm,
for what they did. But the second attorney, and I give her credit, Miss Jacqueline McMickens, who I, shout out in the book, she convinced me to memorialize everything. And
mm,
so I began preparing the book. I wrote of what I thought was a foreword, but it actually turned out to be acknowledgments. But I'd written acknowledgments for a book,
mm-hmm,
but I never did anything with it. I just sat on it. You know how it is, doggy. You
mm-hmm,
know, life goes on, man. You get into this project because I'm a producer and a songwriter.
mm-hmm,
I'm doing this, I'm doing that, and I just put it on ice. But then an opportunity came up for me to do a lecture circuit with Chuck D and the Rap Station Network and Daddy O and these kind of things. And I was told that based on some of the stuff that I was going to be doing my lectures about, that if I had something to offer the people when I did my lectures, that would be great, because usually people want something from the person that was just talking to them for an hour.
mm-hmm.
And I was like, well, I started a book some time ago, but I never finished it. And so it was like, do it. do the book.
Mm-hmm.
And I really started getting, I started, I said, yeah, man, let me just get into that. So I got back into it, man. And I was reliving the whole case, and it just got me angry all over again, all that stuff that went down. But it was cathartic. I was able to just hash everything out, and I wrote the book in 2 months.
Yeah, and for the people that don't know, the book that we're talking about right now is The Anatomy of a Corporate Lynching by Charles Ford. He's also on the screen. That's who's talking right now. Audiobook is available at www.fourthfordbooks.com. Of course, you can just put this title in Google if you like, and it's gonna come up, and you could, get it of your choice. But sometimes you just want to sit back and listen. So if you want to sit back and listen, you could go directly to the website www.fourthfordbooks.com, as you see on the screen. The Anatomy of a Corporate Lynching, where he's going to take you step by step, blow by blow, everything that happened in this case. So what could we want them to get the books. We don't want to give them the final result of everything. But what could we reel them what could we reel them in with? Why should they get this? Why should they say, you know what, I'm gonna get the audio book, or I'm gonna get this book, I want to check it out? Why should they do that?
Well, for the people who want to get the audiobook, it's going to be interesting because I narrate the story, but I have voice actors who are playing the parts of the attorneys and the different people who comprise the story and make up the story. So you're going to get, it's a different experience. It's definitely a different experience. So if you want that, then I would suggest that you get the audiobook. And the audiobook is available at the website that I have specifically designated for it, because Audible, I was initially going to go with Audible, but man, Audible was just like 87% of the residuals from the sale of the book would go to them. And I'm like, it just didn't make sense to do it that way. And in order for it to make sense, I would have had to sell the book for the audio book for like $80 just to get like what, $10 out of it. And I didn't want to do that, so I just kept it at like below $25, $21.99, and just set up a website. And fortunately, I was able to bring it to you. The voice actors, I had several people come on board to tell the story. So if you want to hear it that way, it's available to you that way. But of course, it's available on Amazon in the paperback and Kindle form as well. And as for why they may want to check the story out, I would say, particularly for creative people, for creators, it kind of teaches you the importance of protecting your intellectual properties and why it's important. And it deals with the history of theft, how Black people have had their artistry and their content just taken from under them and weren't compensated for it. And this goes back so far. And it touches on all of that. It walks you through everything based on my experience. And it also shows you why not to underestimate the value of your intellectual properties, because I was just thinking like, okay, well, let me just come up with something, and they'll just give me like a couple $100 for what I bought to them, only to learn how much they paid this advertising company allegedly for the idea.
Allegedly, how much they paid them for the idea?
Doggy, I don't even want to tell you.
Is it in the book? Is it in the book?
It makes me mad.
Is it in the book?
Yes, it is. Okay, it is. It is.
Go listen.
And I included it just so that you can see that you have potential as an artist, and don't ever undercut yourself. A lot of times, man, we sit up and we be like, I'll be happy if I could just get this or a little write-up or mention here. But when you see what these people are paying externally for ideas that are just like yours, man, it teaches you a lesson. It really teaches you a lesson. And like I said, man, typing up the book for the first printing, that was a whole emotional thing for me. And then redoing it, because remember, I had to redo the book when I did the audiobook,
Mm-hmm.
because I had to read it all over again. And it just brought up those feelings again, and the anger, just seeing it and living through it again, just reading it. It was just a thing, man. And it just pissed me off a lot. I'm good now.
Yeah, yeah,
I'm
yeah,
good
yeah,
now,
yeah.
man. I've gotten it off my chest. And the story that I was not able to get in front of a jury because Con Edison didn't want me to be able to so bad. Now anybody across the world can hear it and see it.
Okay, so for the people who want to, reach out to you, stay in contact with you, how can they do that? What is your social media? How could they, follow up with you and holler at you?
Okay, well, I have two separate brands. One artistically, I have as Charles Bronxon, and I'm on Instagram and Facebook as Charles Bronxon. That's CHAS Bronx Son,
Mm-hmm.
because I'm from the Bronx, and
Mm-hmm.
it's a play on the actor's name Charles Bronson. And since I'm a son of the Bronx, I'm Charles Bronx Son. And I can also be reached. I had an Instagram page set up just for the book at author Charles Ford on
Mm-hmm.
Instagram as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but they just
And
go.
and, and you can visit. You can. Well, yeah, we'll leave it there. We'll leave
Yeah,
it
yeah,
there.
and the website will be pinned to first comment of this video as well in the description box, so they can go get the book directly. They could download as well as your
Say it again.
Insta.
It froze.
I said the fourth floor books will be the first pinned comment on this video, as well as in the description box, so they can go get the book for themselves, as well as your Instagram will be there. So if they want to holler at you, just even say they seen the interview and just some type of support and and get the audio, because you're gonna hear that dollar amount. I could only imagine. So that's where you're gonna hear the dollar amount that these individuals, that this ad agency was paid for your idea. So
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
It's in each format of the book. It's in the paperback, it's in the Kindle, and it's in the audiobook. So whatever format is more convenient for you, it's available for you. It's all in there. Yeah, just you can hit me up at Charles Bronxon on Instagram.
All right.
CHAS though,
Yeah.
not Charles spelled out.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
CHAS. It'll be in the description box, so they can just click it and just go right to your Instagram and follow you and reach out to you. So yeah, I want to thank you for joining me
Right.
today. I knew you for a little while now,
Yeah.
and we
Yeah.
finally
Yeah.
we finally
Yeah.
made some stuff happen. And this is crazy. When you was like, yo, I got a story, I'm like, it's crazy. But
Yeah.
you still here, you still smiling. I don't know if I'd be smiling as you are. I'd probably be somewhere still pissed off. But it's been some time. It took a lot of time of your life. But as long as you're able to tell your story without being silent, get your story out there. And it's not about being compensated for your story as much as it is for being able to tell your story, because this has been happening to us as creators for a very long time. People just steal our work and then say, oh, it'll be like it's both of ours, or oh, I've been thought of that. You know what I'm saying? Because they do it to me
Right.
all the time, and so to see it happen to somebody else on such a level of a Con Edison is just crazy to me. So I want to thank you for joining
Right.
me, man, and I'll build with you later on.
All right, happy to do this, man.
Yeah,
Happy
yeah,
to do this on your
we,
show.
we
Like you
got
said, man, we've been trying to make something pop for a minute,
yeah,
and
yeah,
now that we're
but
able to do it,
But it,
yeah,
but the dope
appreciate it,
thing,
man.
it end up coming back to you. You know what I'm saying? So no matter what you try to do for other people, sometimes you are your biggest artist. Believe it or not. So I tell people that all the
No
time.
doubt.
Put the forth in what you try to put into other people, put it into yourself, and watch what happens. So all right, I'm gonna sign you out, bro, and thank you for joining me.
Interview King, Doggie Diamonds.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Peace.
All right, y'all. So that was Charles Ford, aka Charles Bronx Son. His information will be the first pinned comment as well in the description box. Make sure you hit him up. Get the book. Audio book. I prefer to read, but the creativity of different actors and all that. It's something different. So I'm gonna pick that up as well. And I think you should pick it up too. So here, what I do today is called the Next Wave. It's the Next Wave edition of new artists, authors, singers, actors, just different people that's coming to the industry with something to offer. And if you want to be a part of this series that I'm doing, this is how. Hey, you want to be a part of the Next Wave? Then hit me up at info@doggiediamondstv.com. That's right, email info@doggiediamondstv.com. Let's see if you got what it takes.